he took.
Monday edition, PFT OT. Chris Simms, Mike Florio. Stuff we didn't get to or didn't get to talk about as much as we would like to on today's PFT Live. Chris, let's get right to it. 4 arrests happened on Saturday. Now, 2 of them were for incidents that occurred earlier in the week. That bizarre allegation of a party that went south when Quentin Dunbar, the Seahawks defensive back, and DeAndre Baker, the Giants defensive back, allegedly brandished weapons and stole money and jewelry. And after a couple of days of being on the loose without turning themselves in, they did on Saturday. They were released on bail on Sunday. They both face serious charges of armed robbery for both of them and aggravated assault with a firearm for Baker. And then on top of that, Cody Latimer, the Washington receiver, was arrested. That it was an incident that began with shots being fired shortly after midnight. Latimer was booked on charges of assault in the second degree, menacing, illegal discharge of a firearm, and prohibited use of a weapon and reckless endangerment. And then Ed Oliver, the Bills defensive tackle, a top 10 pick in 2019, arrested on charges of DWI and unlawful possession of a weapon. Chris, look, I'm not used to, in recent years, this kind of a rash of incidents. The NFL had done a great job, and the players had done a great job of getting these off-field incidents under control. And between the 2007 beefing up of the personal conduct policy after the Pac-Man Jones and Chris Henry incidents, and then again in 2014 after Ray Rice, when the NFL took it to an even higher level, we have seen guys avoid trouble far more often than not. And even 4 out of 2,880 roster spots is statistically very small. The fact that players had been staying out of trouble makes this kind of thing more noticeable when it happens. Yeah. So in a way, the fact that we're focused on this and that this is unusual, it's a testament to how well players have been behaving, that we're not numb to this, that when it happens, we get, what in the world is going on? Well, the players have been staying out of trouble, so it's more significant when there is a rash like this that happens out of the blue.
Yeah, really. I mean, it is amazing. You know, the NFL has done a great job. The players, the NFLPA, the NFL itself, the message has gotten out there. Players have been smart for the most case, and I'm really, with 2,000 plus players. And if you looked at the history or the background of a lot of these players and where they came from, honestly, I'm surprised it happens as little as it does. And with this case, I mean, I think what's shocking is just that, all four players hit us just as like bam, 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 all of a sudden on a Friday and a Saturday. And all of a sudden we're like, man, what the hell is going on here? The first thing I thought of, Mike, too, is I doubt we have 4 arrests on Saturday or anything like that if we had players back in the facilities and OTAs and off-season training had happened. Now, you might have had one of these. The world's not perfect. I understand that. But I think what you're seeing is players with a lot of free time on their hands. These are young kids with money in their pockets a lot of the times. Life is crazy at that age a little bit too. And, of course, you think you're invincible. Plus, you don't have the support system of your team and players around you. There is something to that. When you get there in March, okay, my free time's over. Okay, I got a coach yelling at me every day, telling me, don't be that guy. Don't get in trouble. Don't put our organization in a tough spot, let alone you have teammates around you to where when you might think about, I want to go do something stupid or whatever, I'll just go to my teammate's house and we'll have a barbecue and hang out there and I'll be safe. And that's a big aspect of, I think, players' lives that's missing right now. And I think that's probably a big reason you saw this, these issues this last week.
You're absolutely right. It's that structure that comes from the offseason program, the ability to have messages constantly reinforced by the coach, and the assistance that comes from other members of the staff if there is a player that they're concerned about. That these teams have a vested interest in keeping guys out of trouble, and they like it when they have the players in the building because they feel more confident they can help the players make good decisions. And also, you're keeping them occupied. You're keeping them busy. And, instead of going out, getting into trouble, they're playing video games with a teammate, going to a teammate's house for dinner, spending time together as part of this common effort to get ready for training camp. And it's always that break between the end of the offseason program and the start of training camp where coaches and general managers have the greatest concern. They finally get away from everything and they're sleeping with one eye open because they're worried about what's going to happen. But in recent years, guys have found a way to stay out of trouble. Again, there was a time when it seemed like every night or every weekend, in Memorial Day weekend, it was clockwork. There would be multiple arrests coming out of that, typically something happening in South Beach where, a guy did something he shouldn't have done. He got in a spot he shouldn't have been in. But between the enhanced penalties that the NFL imposes on players now and this ongoing effort by teams to get through to the players and reinforce that message, you take that away this year, and I think what it does, it reminds the league and it reminds the teams right now that they better incorporate something meaningful into these Zoom sessions, into these efforts to communicate with the players. They're worried about getting their offenses and defenses in.
Yeah,
how do we
right.
get ready for the season with all this stuff? It may be that for some of these teams, those things that would be constantly there, those constant reminders, those programs, those efforts, maybe they've been neglected by some teams. And
sure.
Even then, it's not nearly as effective as it is when you're face-to-face. But I guarantee you this week, most, if not all, teams are going to be taking a look to what they need to be saying and doing through these remote sessions to get guys to be more careful.
Agreed. I mean, you're right. Mike, I didn't even think about that. But, usually during this time of the year, you have player development meetings, especially for the young players, the first, the second, the third, the fourth-year players, where, the leader of that department in your organization has little meetings. Hey, Wednesday at, 12:30, everybody's got to be in the team meeting room if you're 4 years or under in the NFL. And they're going to hit a life topic on that day, whether that's taking care of your checkbook or how to manage your money or whatever it may be. And you're right, Mike. I mean, I hadn't really thought about that. That's missing right now. And that is another, talking point or something, again, that's going to get players to reconsider or just do things the right way, get them going down the right path. Let alone, I think the biggest thing is not having your teammates, again, especially for young guys. I just know with me, a guy like me and Dwight Smith, we might have gone off and had a lot of fun and been stupid and got in trouble. But thank God Rondé Barber was having a barbecue, and we went there and we could hang out there and drink beers and have fun, whatever it may be. And I think that's when you talk about, this guy, we hear veteran players, he's good for a locker room, or he does this and does that. He's good for the culture. That's where a really good veteran player comes in. When you go, this guy, okay, he's a little rough around the edges, he's got, some issues. Maybe I could take him under my wing and show him the right way, the right path. And to me, that was always the most important support system I ever saw in my career in the NFL.
This incident with DeAndre Baker and Quentin Dunbar is very bizarre. It sounds like a bad episode of The Sopranos if the allegations are true. Now, Here's where it stands. The lawyers profess the innocence of their clients, which, look, I think that there's an unbeaten streak of lawyers saying their clients are innocent all the way back to the establishment of the criminal justice system. But both lawyers claim they have evidence, they have affidavits that contradict the witness statements. And look, I want to see the original police statements. I want to see these affidavits before I come to any conclusions. But, there's a chance that these affidavits, to the extent they contradict the information that was harvested on the evening of the incident, that could create enough reasonable doubt that prevents Quentin Dunbar and DeAndre Baker from ever being convicted. The other side of it, though, Chris, is if it looks like it's, too convenient, if it looks like maybe after the dust settled, there was an effort to basically get witnesses to recant and change their tune and not snitch on these guys, that may be obvious as well from the content of the statements. I want to see how they conflict. I want to see how dramatic the change is, and then I'm going to want to see what these witnesses would have to say when they have to reconcile the two statements, because ultimately a jury's going to be looking at this saying, wait a minute, it actually could make it easier for the prosecution to prove their case. If it's so over the top and conflicts so dramatically with what was said on the evening in question. That's why they get these statements. They get them fresh before they can be corrupted by anything. The passage of time, a faulty memory, or somebody who decides to come around with a little something to get them to say something other than what they already said. I'm not saying that's what happened here, but these are the things you have to take into account. That's why you get the statement fresh, and there's no statement more reliable than the statement obtained at the scene. So there's a lot to flesh out here. It's by no means a get-out-of-jail-free card, literally, for Quentin Dunbar and DeAndre Baker. It complicates the case. The lawyers think that it should end the case right now, which is what they're paid to say. This thing is going to be, I think, complicated. It's going to take some time, and it's not going to be cheap for either player.
No, I can't imagine it being cheap, no, let alone, I mean, gosh, it's going to really put them in the doghouse with their organizations regardless. I mean, they were in a bad spot. These are things that, teams preach. Don't put yourselves or don't be in positions to where, you could be accused of this, whether they're guilty or not. Like you said, we don't know yet. But to me, the other thing that's interesting here, Mike, and with the amount of money we're talking about, and it sounds like I don't know exactly where this went down, but the watches and everything, I mean, I would think there's got to be a camera somewhere, or a phone. Somebody got somebody on camera here, to where it would be able to prove something. And I'm also and again, I know right now this is all early, and I'm not trying to say Mr. Baker or Mr. Dunbar are guilty or anything. But to me, I'm just fascinated if it did go down to want to be like the psychology of it, to go, wait, did you guys really think you're going to get away with this? Like that's to me where I'm almost like they couldn't have done this, because did they really think as NFL starting corners in football, they would be able to do this and get away with it? So that's where I'm like mind blown emoji right now about this topic, but we'll see where it goes.
Well, it's a combination of youth, stupidity, alcohol, maybe something stronger than alcohol. There's a lot of, the prisons throughout this country are not filled with geniuses. And, of course, there are a lot of other reasons why guys get in trouble, and there are issues with the criminal justice system, and we don't nearly have enough time to even begin to address those. But stupidity, I think, has contributed to a lot of people ending up behind bars. One other thing about DeAndre Baker, he's been told by the Giants, just go ahead and stay away from these Zoom meetings, focus on your legal issues for now, which is probably a smart thing to do. And I think both guys are going to be looking at placement on the commissioner exempt list if these charges aren't resolved when the time comes for teams to get together again. The charges are too serious, I think, for the league not to use the commissioner exempt list. So we'll keep everyone updated on how these cases unfold. Before we go, one other thing that popped up last week. Chris, you haven't had a chance to chime in on it in this setting or in PFT Live. We didn't talk about it during the show today, and on Friday it was Big Cat. The James Harrison admission from the Barstool Sports Going Deep podcast with Willie Colon and Stephen Shea that when James Harrison was fined $75,000 in 2010 for an illegal hit on Browns receiver Mohamed Massaquoi, Mike Tomlin, the coach of the Steelers, gave Harrison an envelope. Art Rooney II, the Steelers president, has denied the Harrison allegations. I don't know why Mike Tomlin hasn't said anything about it. James Harrison went to Instagram on Friday, and he essentially confirmed that he did get an envelope. He just lashed out at the idea that the giving of an envelope to James Harrison after he was fined by the league is similar to a bounty. That's his beef with it. He has not recanted. Even though his agent has tried to put the toothpaste back in the tube, Harrison has not recanted. Tomlin hasn't said anything. It's clearly a violation of the rules to pay someone's fine. And I agree it's not a bounty per se. There are issues with this, though, and there are problems with paying a player's fine. It takes away the disincentive to get fined if you know that your coach is going to give you the money back. Now, we don't know how much money Mike Tomlin gave James Harrison, Chris, but, look, it's something that if it happened in the past year or two, I think the NFL would be all over it. The fact that it happened 10 years ago, the NFL is going to hope that it dies down and that they can move on and they can turn the page and it quickly becomes forgotten because they don't want to go back 10 years and deal with something that happened, that is over, that is done, that happened before the bounty scandal, which kind of reset everyone's clock to zero on what is and isn't permitted when it comes to players getting money for anything that happens on a football field.
Well, yeah, I mean, hey, the Steelers, Mike Tomlin, Art Rooney II, they're going to be careful, of course, because it is against the rules in the NFL. But I mean, here's the thing to me. First off, this was not anything about a bounty. That drove me crazy. Looking at some of those comments on social media and stuff over the this past weekend, has nothing to do with that. This is what, at least in my eyes, what it looks like. Mike Tomlin, he's a defensive coach. Massaquoi went over the middle. James Harrison hit him with his shoulder, kept his head out of it. And I think Mike Tomlin went, you know what? That's Steelers football. Okay, he got fined. I know it's against the rules, but I like his brand of football. He tried to hit him safely, and he played physical. I'm going to help him out. He wouldn't be the first guy in the history of the NFL to do that. He wouldn't even be within the first 1,000 of a guy in the NFL that have done that. It goes on all the time. If a defensive player has a play like that where the team looks at it and goes, man, I mean, damn, he didn't try to hurt anybody. It wasn't what they're looking like, oh, helmet to helmet. You tried to knock the guy's head off. Just good physical play over the middle. I've seen whole defenses come up for a guy and chip in money for fines. Coaches, other players play the whole fine for that player, whatever it may be. So it's a very common thing within the NFL culture. And Mike Tomlin is a stand-up human being. He's not putting bounties on anybody. But if you think he doesn't want his team to play physical Pittsburgh Steeler type football, that's a different thing. And I think that's maybe what he was promoting there more than anything, and just kind of trying to help out one of his leaders of his football team with that.
Yeah, and look, we talked about on Friday, the context here. The NFL was still getting its arms around what was going to be expected of the sport in this era of sensitivity to player health and safety. It was October of 2009 that Roger Goodell and DeMaurice Smith were called up to Capitol Hill for a subcommittee hearing on the failures of the league and the union to do enough when it comes to concussions. It was October of 2010 when it was the Harrison hit on Muhammad Massaquoi. It was Brandon Merriweather on Todd Heap, and it was Dante Robinson on Deshaun Jackson. Boom, 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 in 15 minutes of real time. That turned the NFL on its head. It encouraged the NFL, if not forced the NFL, to be more aggressive in throwing flags for helmet-to-helmet hits on defenseless players. That was kind of the sea change moment. But the thing is, the Steelers were standing there saying, no, these are clean hits. Tomlin said, no, what James Harrison did was clean. Art Rooney at the time said it was a clean hit. Right. So it's easy to justify this notion that, hey, our guys are getting screwed by the league office. And so we're going to give them some money back. And it doesn't surprise me that it happened. I believe it happened. And, Chris, the next year, Ryan Clark, the former Steelers safety, I think he also played for Washington. He's with ESPN now. He was fined $40,000 for an illegal helmet-to-helmet hit. And he said that Mike Tomlin used that in slow motion in the film room to say, this is exactly what I want you to do. So it shows there was a disconnect there. And at one point, Tomlin and Rooney had to go to the league office and meet with the commissioner because of the disconnect between what the league's trying to do and what the Steelers organization was telling the world is and isn't acceptable play. So, bottom line, I believe that James Harrison got an envelope. And I agree with you. It's not a bounty. But some would say, Chris, that now, to the extent that the Saints bounty program was premised on clean legal hits that incapacitate an opponent, not dirty hits, not, a Jeff Gillooly kneecap, but a clean legal hit. You go blast that guy and you put him on the sideline with a hit that you don't get flagged or fined for, and you get some money. I don't think that that's worse than paying a guy's fine for an illegal hit after the fact. You could argue it's worse to pay a guy's fine for an illegal hit after the fact, because if you're paying his fine, and again, we don't know how much money was in that envelope, but if you're paying a guy's fine, you're saying keep doing it. Go ahead. Keep doing it. Keep playing football the way you're playing it, even if it doesn't mesh with the rules. The disconnect is the Steelers thought it did mesh with the rules. They disagreed with what the league was doing. That's why that happened at the time.
Well, either way, I don't think either one was about hurting people outside the scope of the rules. I don't think anybody was looking for that. And Greg Williams, Mike Tomlin, they're old school defensive minded coaches. And come on, Mike Tomlin at that time, he's the coach of the Steelers. They've won Super Bowls. He's the coach of the Steelers because, hey, the Steelers are famous for their physical, Blitzburg type defense, and we're going to impose our physicality. And you want to come over the middle against us, you're going to think twice about it. That was part of football. Yeah, that was not digested at that point. And no, I don't think either one, Bountygate or Mike Tomlin, are into hurting people or doing anything illegal. But yeah, I mean, even to this day, if I saw that hit from James Harrison, it would get flagged as defenseless receiver. I get that. But I don't sit here and watch it. And I just watched it again before we started doing this segment to go, oh man, that was so egregious and horrible. No, he tried to lay a big hit with his shoulder on a receiver coming over the middle. And I don't think it was anything to do with like, oh, my coach told me to do this, or no, it's just the way they're coached in general, to be physical there. And I think Mike Tomlin was trying to stick up for his guy and stick up for the culture of what Pittsburgh is on defense.
But, Chris, I was talking to somebody about this last week. The Steelers have had a reputation of a team that comes in hot, that comes in with the helmet down. I mean, look at what happened to Ryan Shazier. They come in with the helmet down. I've heard stories about it happening during preseason games, coaches for other teams being pissed off about it, they've got that culture where they come in hot, and this is what happens. So back in the early days of everyone trying to figure out what the rules were going to be and how the NFL was going to be and how it was going to evolve in light of this sensitivity concussions, I can understand why Mike Tomlin would say, screw the league office. They're taking money out of my guy's pocket. They're going to make my guys less willing to go out and play the way they need to play. I'm going to take care of my guy so he keeps playing the way that he needs to play.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's what it is. I can remember back in the 90s, Joe Montana paying a Neil Smith. Wasn't that Neil Smith, right? That used to wear the Band-Aid on the Kansas City Chiefs, right? I remember he got a fine for something and telling a story where like Joe Montana the next day put an envelope on his locker. Damn, we should go back and find the Kansas City Chiefs. We should. They're promoting bad. No, it's a culture of men sticking up for each other. And it's nothing about being illegal or hurting somebody. It's just a style of football in general. That's what it is. And Pittsburgh is famous for that style. Mike Tomlin was there to be the head coach to make sure that style continued to get enforced in his regime in the new era as a head coach that Bill Cowher had set forth before him and Chuck Noll before that. And yes, that's the way they played, and they were still adjusting at those times. But, I don't want anybody to get it confused with thinking that Mike Tomlin was setting Bountygate or anything like that.
Neil Smith, the guy who had the great sack celebration. You remember what a sack celebration was?
What did he do? Like,
he swung the bat.
Swung the bat. That's right. That's what it was. Yeah. I was chopping wood. He swung the bat. That's right.
Yeah, swung the bat. All right. That's it for PFTOT. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of PFT Live all day long at ProFootballTalk.com. When's the next unbutton, Chris?
We're going Tuesday, Thursday. Tuesday, I'm not sure what the hell we're going to hit on yet. Thursday, I'm not sure what the hell we're going to hit on yet either, but we'll get there.
I'm talking to Coach Dungy later today about these enhancements to the Rooney Rule. You'll see that in the PFT PM podcast. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a great day.
You too. See ya.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.